The disappearance of 27-year-old Kelly caused shock and alarm to her loved ones when she suddenly failed to show up for work on October 12, 2013. Her colleagues tried to contact her, but her cell phone was silent. The girl was also inactive on social media, which was suspicious. She never let her phone out of her hands before. Kelly simply disappeared and loved ones contacted the police to file a missing persons report. Detectives began an investigation that revealed many curious details, and the story was getting more and more complicated. Kelly Dwyer was born in 1986 in Lincolnshire, a suburb of Chicago, to a family that loves her. In 2002, when Kelly was 16 years old, her parents decided to divorce but remained in a warm relationship for the sake of their daughter. Her parents' divorce was a traumatic event that greatly affected her life. A year after the divorce, she graduated from high school not knowing what she wanted to do with her life. Taking a temporary break before going to college, she worked part-time at a restaurant. In 2008, at the age of 22, Kelly decided to take a big step and move to another city to start a new life. She chose Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which was about an hour away from Chicago, and reminded her of her hometown. The town was imbued with the true spirit of America. Milwaukee was the largest city in Wisconsin by population, offering great opportunities. Kelly quickly made new friends, went to college, and got a job as a yoga coach to pay for her tuition and housing. Additionally, she occasionally worked as a nanny to cope with financial hardship. As a young girl, Kelly loved to visit all the trendy, interesting, and popular places in the city. She enjoyed her life and made big plans for the future. The last time she saw her father was a month before she disappeared. He was coming to Milwaukee to visit his daughter. At that time, Kelly had already graduated and was working as a yoga trainer and sales clerk at a sportswear store. Her co-workers, who were her friends, really liked her for her fun and upbeat personality. Kelly seemed to be happy and content with her life. She loved her job and had been dating a guy named Chris Zock for a year. Chris Zock was a 38-year-old successful IT manager for a trucking company. He had graduated from Boston University with a degree in international business in 2009. For work, he relocated from New York City to Milwaukee. Chris was a hard-working, decent guy with a good family. Also like Kelly, they both loved sports and entertainment, and together seemed like a great couple. Chris at that time already had a successful career, a luxurious apartment, an expensive car, and a decent fortune that he had earned himself. His father liked the guy, and he seemed like a great match for Kelly. During the investigation, detectives determined that the missing person had no enemies or ill-wishers who could harm her. All of her belongings were left at home, ruling out the possibility that she had run away. What was disturbing was the lack of any activity on her bank accounts and phone. Therefore, police officers had a feeling that the girl was in trouble. The last person to see her on October 10, 2013 was her boyfriend, Chris. So the investigators invited him to the station for a conversation. The boyfriend said they met at his luxury apartment in Lafayette Towers, spent time there, and left around 8 p.m. The couple headed to a small bar that was located across the street from the apartment building. There, Chris and Kelly socialized with other people and had a drink. Cheerful, they returned to his apartment around 2:30 a.m. and went to bed. At 9 a.m., Kelly left and they never saw each other again. Chris emphasized that he did not consider Kelly as his girlfriend. According to him, they had an open relationship, and he was truly in love with another girl with whom he saw his future. This caused the investigators to wonder. Chris's story looked quite plausible, but something was suspicious in his words and behavior, so the police decided to take a closer look at him. Detectives found friends who were with the couple that night and interviewed them. They confirmed that they had a great time together, first at the bar and then they went outside, ordered a pizza because they were hungry, and ate it right on the bench. Kelly was in a good mood and shared her plans for the next day, which was her day off. The girl planned to get a full week's worth of sleep, do yoga, do laundry, and rest. Chris and Kelly then left for home. A little later, her friend came over, whom the couple invited for another drink. She said that she felt uncomfortable being in Chris's apartment. She had a few drinks, felt the tension within the couple, and left. The friend also said that Chris was smoking and chatting with her that night, and Kelly was already kind of sad at that point. The girl thought that Kelly was just tired, so she didn't bother them and removed herself from the apartment. After talking candidly with Kelly's other girlfriends, the investigator found out that things were not as smooth as they seemed between Chris and Kelly. Kelly was truly in love with him, but Chris didn't seem as interested in the relationship. He wasn't making any joint plans with the girl for his life, and that worried Kelly. Missing believed that Chris was having an affair on the side and they would break up soon. Therefore, Kelly did not believe that they had a future and started looking for options for herself on the side. She registered on a dating site and began to correspond there with different guys, but has not yet met them in real life, hoping to normalize relations with Chris. Her friends told her that they noticed bruises on Kelly's arms and neck. They wondered where the bruises came from, but the girl always turned the conversation into a joke, calling it a crazy night, and immediately changed the subject. Her friends suspected that they might have been signs of violence, but Kelly never confirmed it. By then, the CCTV footage from Chris's house had already been analyzed. They showed the couple drunk at night returning to the apartment, but the girl never left it again. The footage contradicted Chris's story that Kelly left his home at 9 a.m. the next morning. It turned out that another friend of Chris's had been at the apartment that night and said he had been using illegal substances with Chris. Based on this information, detectives obtained a search warrant for the apartment and went to Chris's house. Inside, they did find various substances, pills, pipes, and other items, and arrested Chris for possession. The detectives also noticed another oddity: a torn curtain in the bathroom. The curtain was missing, and the hooks on which it was hanging were damaged, as if the curtain had been ripped off by force. During the interrogation, the guy was calm and confirmed that he had taken substances but did not distribute them. The police got access to the detainee's cell phone and began to study it. Inside were frightening materials: photos of a girl naked and unconscious on his bed, as well as a video of the guy raping the unconscious girl and seemingly strangling her. Suspicions arose that Chris was drugging the girl with substances and becoming intimate with her. These materials were entered into evidence in the case of Kelly's disappearance. The police then visited Chris's apartment again with a dog that is trained to find dead bodies. The dog responded to the bed and bathroom in Chris's apartment, then pointed to the front door. It later led law enforcement officers to Chris's car, which was in the parking lot, as well as to garbage cans. At that point, investigators were already certain that the missing person was dead, and Chris became the prime suspect in the case. She spent the last minutes of her life in his apartment. Then the boyfriend took her body out and drove her away in a car. It remained unclear how he was able to discreetly carry her body out to the car without being caught on any of the 28 CCTV cameras. While the police continued their investigation, they checked Chris's computer and found explicit baby pictures. He was charged with possession of these materials. At that point, Chris was out on bail pending trial, and investigators were working to find evidence and Kelly's body to charge him. After remembering what Chris had told them about another girl he was seeing on the side, detectives began looking into the suspect's double life. It turned out that this girl's name was Megan, and they had been dating for about 3 years. But Megan was unaware of Kelly's existence in Chris's life. The detectives went to talk to Megan, showing her pictures of Chris's apartment. Looking closely at the pictures, Megan noticed that some things were missing. The bathroom was missing a shower curtain, a rug, and several towels. The bedroom was missing a huge golf bag that had always been kept there. From its description, the detectives assumed that Kelly's body could have fit in such a bag. After examining all the entrances and exits in the building, the police concluded that there was one alternate route Chris could have taken to get to the car unnoticed. Apparently, he had studied the house well in advance and worked out this route. Parking lot camera footage showed the guy showing up with a large bag, which he stowed in the trunk. He left the house in his car at 10:06 a.m., October 11th, and at 10:08 a.m., Kelly's phone was permanently disconnected at the same location. Over the next 8 hours, footage showed Chris coming and going from the house several times, loading things into his car before finally leaving for good at 6:16 p.m. He did not return home until the next day. When asked by investigators what he was hauling that day, the boy said he was moving his summer sports equipment to his mother's house. However, no one believed these words. At 7:30 p.m. that day, Chris was supposed to meet Megan, but according to her, he was more than an hour late for the meeting. Detectives believed he was probably looking for a suitable place to dispose of Kelly's body at that time, so he was late. However, it was not possible to track his movements throughout the day as his phone had been switched off since the morning. Apparently, Chris, as an experienced IT guy, was well aware that his phone billing would make it easy to trace him. According to Megan's testimony, Chris was not himself that night. He seemed agitated and nervous. The guy started fiddling with his phone, claiming it wasn't working, which is why he was late. After the date, they headed to Megan's apartment where they spent the night. According to the girl's testimony, Chris was so stressed out that he didn't sleep all night and sweated profusely to the point where she even had to change the sheets in the morning. Investigators speculated that he was so nervous because he hadn't yet disposed of Kelly's body, which was in his trunk, and he was afraid of exposure. The guy was trying to figure out where he could hide the girl's remains. On the morning of October 12th, he said goodbye to Megan and left. Before that, he convinced the girl to urgently move with him for a while to another city, Denver, but she refused. Police officers were able to track where the guy was headed using the car's GPS. It was a place called Cheese House, a cheese store that was 130 kilometers from Milwaukee. But why did Chris need to drive that far for cheese early in the morning? Obviously, that's not why he headed there. But Chris claimed he bought a piece of cheese there for his parents. The guy even had a receipt for the 9:55 a.m. purchase on October 12th, and his parents confirmed that he had brought them cheese. But it was hard to believe it, because the same cheese could have been easily bought in a regular supermarket near the house. The police suspected that this was the area where the boy had disposed of the missing woman's body. Then it turned out that on the way back, Chris stopped at a sportswear store and bought new sneakers a little after noon, which also seemed suspicious. Detectives believed that it was not accidental. The guy decided to get rid of an old pair of shoes, which could possibly get drops of blood on them, or his footprints from the old sneakers could be left at the site of the remains of the deceased and lead investigators to him. He thought it over carefully and methodically, got rid of all the evidence, creating an alibi for himself. The suspect had an analytical mind and wanted to commit the perfect crime. But even here, investigators were able to convict him of lying. The distance from the cheese store to the sports store was about 80 kilometers, a journey he would have made in about an hour. But then why did he show up at the store more than 2 hours later? All indications were that for another hour, he was doing something else, probably hiding the body. They thought that the guy had found some hiding place on the way and got rid of the bag there. The police were searching for the body, but there was no exact location of the remains, making the search difficult and inconclusive. The possible search area was the entire route of 80 kilometers. It was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Meanwhile, in November 2014, Chris Zoka went on trial for possession of substances and child explicit photos. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to a total of 19 years in prison. It was already a big deal for police officers that they were able to get such a dangerous man off the streets of Milwaukee. Meanwhile, the roadside search continued, and at one point they were successful. In a wooded area, about 60 kilometers from the city, human remains were found near the road by a local resident on a walk. They were later identified from dental records as Kelly Dwyer. The local resident immediately reported the gruesome find to the sheriff's office. Those immediately assumed it was Kelly's remains that they had been looking for in the area for so long. This find finally put an end to the search for their daughter, for the girl's parents, who had known no peace for all these years and a half. But now it was necessary to get justice for her, to establish the exact cause of death. It was impossible to determine the cause of death from the skeleton. The medical examiner assumed that the girl was strangled, but the pressure was not strong, so the hyoid bone was not broken. There was no evidence at the site where the body was found, nor was there a torn curtain, mat, towels, or even a bag. However, the position of the body was very unusual. The skeleton was found face down, with one arm under the torso, and the legs were bent, as if the body had been in a confined space for some time after death. This further confirmed that Kelly had been hidden in that golf bag. Chris was caught on his house cameras with that bag, and also driving down that road and being able to dispose of the body. But all of this was circumstantial evidence. There was no direct indication that Chris had done it. So the detectives kept working on the case. They were in no hurry because the suspect was already in jail. In the end, he wasn't charged until 5 years after Kelly's disappearance. The charges were negligent homicide and hiding the body. The police had no way of proving that the murder was premeditated. They assumed that on that night happened about the same thing that investigators found in the video. The guy got intimate with her, got carried away with the strangulation and strangled the girl. He then ripped off the bathroom curtain, rug, towels, wrapped the body, put it in a bag, did a thorough cleaning of the house and removed the body. Chris insisted he was innocent of Kelly's murder. At the trial, CCTV footage was shown. Chris's cell phone footage of the strangulation was shown, and the results of a canine inspection of his apartment were presented. Megan, who testified against him, appeared at the trial. She revealed that he was unusually nervous during the day and was late for a meeting. Also appearing at the trial were Chris's ex-girlfriends who claimed he had an unhealthy relationship with choking and rough sex that frightened them. The defense, on the other hand, argued that there was simply no direct evidence against the accused in the case, and the prosecution was based on guesswork and speculation. Chris had no arrests or convictions prior to the substance possession story. He was a successful IT professional, a valued employee at work and with a decent family. He just wasn't capable of murder. It turned out that not all the CCTV footage had been preserved before the trial. Therefore, the prosecution could not prove with certainty that the deceased had not left the house. The defense even presented a witness at trial who said he saw a girl who looked like Kelly the weekend after she disappeared, in another guy's car. He had previously seen her on TV as a missing person, but the witness wasn't 100% sure it was Kelly. All of this allowed the lawyer to suggest that the girl had successfully left Chris's apartment and was later trapped by one of her new dating site boyfriends. Regarding the dog, defense counsel stated that there is no way to verify what exactly alerted this dog. It wasn't even videotaped. Therefore, it depends entirely on the opinion of the police officer describing the experiment with the dog, and his position may be subjective. The prosecution, however, parried that the experiment with the dog was conducted as objectively as possible in the presence of many police officers, and everyone on the spot agreed with the results of the experiment. And the witness probably saw another girl in the car. Kelly at that time had already stopped contacting, did not answer calls, messages, did not keep her pages in social networks, which was not like her, which means she was already dead at that point. The prosecutor convinced the jury that Chris was behind the murder. There was no one else to do it. But he, being very clever, carefully thought it all out and got rid of the evidence, so they can't provide direct evidence of his involvement. The jury took a long time to reach a decision, but eventually found him guilty of first-degree negligent homicide and hiding the body. The victim's family and the prosecution called for the maximum possible sentence of 48 years in prison. The defense attorney asked for the sentence to be commuted and stopped at 22 years. In December 2018, 43-year-old Chris Zaka was sentenced to 31 years in prison, including 26 years for manslaughter and 5 years for hiding the body. Chris Zaka is currently incarcerated at the Green Bay Correctional Facility, Wisconsin. He will be eligible for parole in 2065 when he turns 90 years old. Chris was clearly unhappy with the sentence and tried to appeal, but the appeals were rejected. The family of the deceased is pleased with the sentence, which will essentially be a life sentence for him. Share your opinion in the comments, and also put likes if you found this story interesting. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.